The studio is heavy with the scent of roses and lilac. In the center sits a young man of extraordinary beauty, Dorian Gray. In this moment, Dorian exists as a pure aesthetic object, a flawless, unblemished muse. The artist, Basil Hallward, has just finished his masterpiece, a life-sized portrait of the boy. But Basil refuses to exhibit it. He confesses to a friend that he has poured too much of himself into the canvas, that he has accidentally trapped the secret of his own soul within the oil and paint. That friend listening in the studio is Lord Henry Wotton. Lord Henry is a cynical aristocrat who views the manipulation of others as the highest form of art. He identifies Dorian as a blank canvas, an opportunity to test the limits of his own influence. Dorian possesses an absolute, untested innocence. Because he has never had to form his own worldview, he has no psychological immune system. This makes him defenseless against a predatory intellect ready to write its own rules over his empty pages. Lord Henry makes a conscious decision. He decides to conduct a psychological experiment on the boy. His goal is to project his own soul into Dorian's gracious physical form, treating the boy's mind as a vessel for his own ideas. This diagram illustrates Lord Henry's philosophy, the new hedonism. It argues yielding entirely to temptation is the only way to cure the soul. He avoids logical argument, delivering radical ideas through hypnotic, musical words. This rhythm bypasses Dorian's rational scrutiny, speaking directly to his imagination. This influence is a calculated psychological intrusion. By feeding Dorian a steady stream of beautifully phrased paradoxes, Lord Henry replaces the boy's natural conscience with his own desires. Lord Henry takes Dorian into the garden and launches a two-pronged verbal attack.
He tells the boy that youth is the single highest currency in life, and that time is a jealous monster actively warring against his lilies and roses, coming to steal his beauty away. The words act as a catalyst. Dorian feels as though he has been walking through fire. He becomes acutely aware of his own mortality, terrified by the thought of his limbs failing and his senses rotting. Stepping back inside, Dorian looks at his finished portrait. The psychological virus takes hold. Seeing the shadow of his own loveliness on the canvas forces him to confront the inevitable reality of physical decay. In a moment of absolute panic, he makes a horrific wish. He begs for the portrait to bear the burden of aging, offering to give up his actual soul if he can just remain eternally young. By prioritizing his physical surface over his spiritual substance, Dorian finalizes the transaction. He swaps places with the inanimate object, condemning his very soul to bear the physical scars of his horrific actions. A month passes, and the symptoms of this corruption emerge. Dorian abandons his former respectable life, blowing off the charitable, philanthropic work he had promised to do in the impoverished East End. Instead, he finds a new obsession in a tawdry, run-down theater, a poor 17-year-old actress named Sibyl Vane, who performs Shakespeare for crowds eating oranges and drinking ginger beer. Dorian's affection is entirely transactional. He admits to Lord Henry that he loves the fictional, aesthetic heroine Sibyl projects on stage, Rosalind one night, Imogen the next, rather than the girl herself. The mind virus has successfully replicated. Dorian now treats a living human being as a piece of art to be consumed, mimicking the very objectification he suffered under Lord Henry. The shy, blushing boy who first sat in Basil's studio has been replaced by a feverish, obsessive hedonist. He now demands to know how to manipulate the world to his whims. Lord Henry watches this transformation with a detached, scientific pride. He is thrilled to see his creation skip to the end stage of his philosophy, harvesting the intense passions of youth without having to earn them through lived experience. This reveals the danger of treating human life as an intellectual experiment. The architect enjoys the aesthetic thrills of the subject's transformation, while assuming zero moral responsibility for the resulting destruction. In the preface to the novel, Oscar Wilde outlines a specific rule: all art is quite useless. He means that art exists solely to be beautiful, existing for its own sake rather than to provide moral instruction. Dorian's fatal mistake is applying this rule of aesthetics to his own human existence. He attempts to live an entirely amoral life, seeking only beauty and pleasure, while believing himself free of consequence. A painting can survive without a moral compass.
A human being cannot survive without a soul. By stripping away his empathy to become a perfect aesthetic surface, Dorian destroys himself from the inside out. It leaves us with a question. In our own era, where we constantly curate our external perfection and filter away our flaws, are we the artist, or have we become the painting?